What is up, everybody? I'm back here again with another video discussing the latest bans from Smogon. Yes, just after the Terrestrialize debate was settled just a few days ago, we already have the newest batch of bans fresh from the OU Council. As we go over here, we can see that Chi-Yu, Annihilape, and Cyclizar have all recently just been voted to be banned from OU. But on top of that, because it's not just OU, we also have some bans for UU as well. As you can see here, Baxcalibur and Hydreigon have both been banned from UU. So lots to talk about here. So before we get right into all this, if you guys do enjoy these types of videos from me, be sure to leave a like, as it really helps me out, and subscribe to the channel for more of these types of videos. But with that all out of the way, let's start talking about it. So first and foremost, Smogon made a post a few days ago after Terra had been figured out, talking about what they were thinking about suspect testing in the near future. As you can see, we got a bunch of Pokemon on here, including a lot that didn't get banned, including Chien-Pao, Espathra, Dragonite, Golden-Go, all those guys. So they were talking about, who should be banned next, now that, since we know how Terrestrialize is going to be handled going forward. Now it seems like a good time to, ban anything that potentially could have a negative impact on the game, basically. And if we go over here, we can see the results of the latest round of voting. As I said, Annihilape, Chi-Yu, and Cyclizar were all voted to be banned from OU. So let's talk about it a little bit. So we can see, first off, looking at the results of the vote, Chi-Yu was unanimously voted to be banned, which is perhaps not that surprising, because Chi-Yu was pretty broken. Is not exactly a balanced Pokemon. We see Annihilape also only had one vote for do not ban. Otherwise, everyone voted for it to be banned, which I also think is understandable. No one voting for Chien-Pao to get banned. That is interesting to me, because Chien-Pao is definitely a very, very strong Pokemon right now. But apparently it's not strong enough that it's seen as needing to be banned. Is that going to change in the future now that stuff like Chi-Yu's gone? I guess we'll have to wait and see. Cyclizar, with 2 people voting not to ban, everyone else voting ban. Dragonite with no one voting ban. Espathra with a few people voting for ban, which kind of surprised me, because I don't think Espathra is that good in the current meta. I know he was kind of a menace for a little bit there, but I mean, he doesn't even, right now he's not even technically OU by usage, so I don't think this thing's really much of a problem in the game currently. We got a couple votes to ban on Garganacl, which is interesting. Garganacl definitely has, he's definitely an annoying Pokemon right now, but I don't know if that's necessarily a prerequisite to be banned. And then no one voting ban on Golden-Go. My boy lives to see another day. They wanted to ban him before, they wanted to ban him again, but not today, not now, not ever. He gets away again. You can't ban the gold, baby. All right, so let's talk about the reasons for banning these Pokemon. As we see, you got a nice little post here. So first of all, Chi-Yu. I probably don't need to explain it that much. If you guys have played OU at all, you probably know why, but let's just, for the sake of completeness, let's read the post, shall we? And what should be the least surprising tiering decision in Scarlet Violet so far? You got that right. Chi-Yu joins Fluttermane, Houndstone, and Palafin in receiving a unanimous ban vote, despite being initially overshadowed by Chien-Pao in the havoc of the early metagame. Also, I would chalk up to, because they do make a point that, at the start, Chi wasn't that good, but I would chalk that up more to 2 of the best Pokemon in the game at the time before they were banned were water types, which, mainly talking about Palafin and Iron Bundle. which definitely, Palafin specifically with Jet Punch definitely checked Chi-Yu pretty hard, so I think that was a reason that we didn't see Chi-Yu as much back then. But after those guys were gone, whew, there was nothing to stop this dude. Chi-Yu has emerged as the most centralizing piece of current Scarlet Violet OU. An excellent 135 special attack, an overall decent stat line, ends up too much to handle when taking its Ruin ability into account. Beats of Ruin multiplies the opponent's special defense, not base stat, but the number itself by 0.75 being before going into damage calculation, which results in a blanket boost of 1.33 or 1 plus 1/3 of all of Chi-Yu's special moves. Chi-Yu's very potent offensive typing, Dark Fire coupled with its overwhelming power and very potent terrestrialization options make it an absolute nightmare for teams to handle defensively. So all that is very true. You know, Chi-Yu's ability, if you didn't know, it basically, like they said, drops the special defense of all opponent Pokemon. So it just, you know, Chi-Yu already has a good special attack, but with its ability, it just gets even stronger. And you know, like they said, it's very strong with Terrasilize. Mainly, you just used to see this thing just Terra into one of its stabs because its stabs were already so good. You might as well just make them stronger. But you did occasionally see people run like a Terra Blast set with some sort of coverage. Normally turn into like a grass type or a fighting type or something like that. So yeah, there was also that to consider. Terrestrializing to fire exacerbates power. Yeah, I mentioned that already. Specs Overheat from Chi-Yu can 2-hit KO a non-Spadef Blissey from full HP. That is disgusting. I remember doing damage calcs for this Pokemon when I found out how strong it was. I was like, this thing is disgusting. What kind of damage does this guy do? There's just no way. That can't be real. Chi-Yu can also choose other Terra types such as Fairy. That's true. That's another one I forgot to mention. For sniping Roaring Moon and the Chance T-Tar, as well as safe 2-hit KO on Tinglu and Move Pool. That's just small, but more than good enough when including Terrestrialization and Terra Blast into account alongside choice specs to make the most of its absurd power, plus Heavy Duty Boots plus Nasty Plot sets to become a more reliable threat and an occasional choice scarf to destroy more offensive teams. Chi-Yu proved a surprisingly versatile threat that is consistently nigh impossible to play against on equal terms. So yes, they did mention that there is a Heavy Duty Boots plus Nasty Plot set, but I feel like I don't really see that at all. I feel like it was always going to be either Specs or Scarf. Specs was just like the best thing to just rip through fatter teams like ever. Like you said, you could two-shot Blissey, like nothing was switching into that guy. But I think Scarf was a little bit better just because offense is a little bit better in the meta right now compared to bulkier teams. And if you're Scarf, then you can just outspeed everything like faster than you and one-shot most like offensive Pokemon. Really not much that can switch in this thing. So yeah, that's why it got banned. Obviously, I feel like, you know, doesn't need much explaining. If you're in the know, then you know. Like Chi-Yu, it was only a matter of time for Chi-Yu. I mean, I think about it, like this thing feels like Darm G to me, kind of. It's like a special fire type Darm G, and just how absurdly strong this thing is, and just like how little counterplay there is. So yeah, definitely not surprised that it's gone. Chi-Yu, you were a fun time, but you will be missed. Bon voyage, friend. Anyways, moving on to the next guy, Annihilape. Annihilape escaped most people's sights before the tier was formally released and during the chaos of the first few days, but it quickly emerged as one of the most important threats of the metagame. Rage Fist is a hellish move to face off against, as it forces Pokemon to withhold damaging Annihilape if they don't do significant enough damage to either OHKO or put it out of commission for the rest of the game. Against the common Bulk Up, Rage Fist, Drain Punch, Taunt, or sometimes Rest Set, using weak moves against it can not only make little progress on your end, but directly enable Annihilape itself to become a bigger threat, with a very serviceable natural bulk with 110 HP, 80 defense, and 90 SPDF, and decent offensive stats. Once it gets bulk up boost or two, While shutting down status moves through taunt, it becomes surprisingly tough to take down and incredibly strong at the same time. Passive sources of damage, such as Rocky Helmet or Garganacl Salt Cure, the latter especially against a Water Terra Annihilape, can be very efficient against it, but are highly specific and not particularly difficult to overcome anyway. Annihilape also has access to Stealth Rock and Final Gambit, and can be used as a potent and highly forceful hazards lead for more offensive teams, giving it another useful niche, albeit not a particularly broken one. So yeah, I know there has been like, I have seen some people run like Rocks Annihilape, which I think is kind of weird because I feel like there's just way more better mons to have for Rocks. And I also know, at least like in VGC and stuff, I've seen like Scarf Final Gambit sets, which are cool. I mean, that's like, Annihilape has a lot of HP, so Final Gambit on it isn't that bad. You can do a lot of damage to Pokemon with it, but I feel like it's not the best play to basically just sack your Annihilape like that, because as gone over and as the result of this ban have shown, this Mon, it's kind of stupid. So they do touch on mainly Rage Fist is the thing that just makes this guy way too good. Rage Fist, if you guys don't know, if I can go over and take a look-see, Rage Fist is a really fun, nifty move that Annihilape gets. It's basically, it's a physical ghost move, starts out at 50 base power, which is, that's pretty weak. Why is that so strong? Well, every time you hit Annihilape, it gets another 50 added onto it, maxing out at 350 base power, which is kind of stupid. And, because basically it's like every time you hit this thing, you making it hits stronger. So it's like, and the main issue with that, right, is like, if you look, they did also mention, like, it's pretty bulky, all things considered, so it's pretty hard to knock out in one hit, and especially when they terrestrialize into a water type, because they're always turned into a water type, or a fairy type sometimes they could turn into, but it's mainly water. Either way, either of those two types are very good defensively, and when they Annihilape becomes one of those types, it's very hard to knock it out quickly, because especially since the things those two types I mentioned are weak to, grass and electric for water, and then poison and steel for fairy. There's not a lot of Pokemon that have strong hits of those types currently that can just like super easily knock this thing out once it's terra'd. So all that coupled with like he terras into a good defensive type. He's got great natural bulk. He can take hits very well, and then his Rage Fist just gets stronger and stronger. And he also has Drain Punch, which not only heals him and keeps him healthy, but it also has perfect coverage with Rage Fist. The Ghost and Fighting Dual Stab is basically impossible to switch into, and like we said, you can set up with Bulk Up. So normally people would give it like max HP, max Spadef, and then they would just boost their attack and defense with Bulk Up. And pretty quickly this thing would just get super out of hand and difficult to deal with. And like I said, I feel like when people first started seeing how good Annihilape was, Rest was more popular. You saw like Resto Chesto to keep itself healthy, but then now we were seeing more Taunt, which I definitely can see why Taunt is so good, because it just like shuts down. I mean, it helps Annihilape set up more, right? It stops other Pokemon from doing what Annihilape doesn't want them to do, because if he taunts them, then they can't like status him, they can't burn or poison or whatever, can't get like whirlwinded out by something like Ting-Lu or anything like that. So like Taunt just helps Annihilape just stay in and set up against a lot of threats. So very understandable why Annihilape would be seen as too overwhelming. I felt that way personally. I'm not surprised this thing got banned, because it feels like, when you used Annihilape, you could just like, if you're able to get him set up, he could just solo teams by himself, which is probably a good sign that this Pokemon's not very balanced. So yeah, despite its typing being one of the best possible offensively, hitting every Pokemon at least neutrally can be fairly lackluster defensively. This is where Terrestrialization comes in. Yep. Yeah, let's just see, he turns into a water type, but he can also turn into steel type, fire type, normal type. This thing was so crazy with Terrestrialize, which I think is also part of the reason they waited on banning these mons in the first place, giving it time until after Terra, because, you know, I think if something did end up happening to Terra, that would affect how they would have gone about, you know, testing or banning these Pokemon potentially, because Annihilape is definitely super strong with Terra, and if Terra got restricted in some way or just banned outright, then definitely think Annihilape would have been worse because of that. But since Terra's staying as is, at least for the foreseeable future, then they really didn't have much reason to keep Annihilape around, which I totally get. So yeah, reduced the amount of non-lethal damage Annihilape takes, or making extremely powerful moves such as Chi's Overheat no longer lethal, makes Rage Fist stronger and lets Annihilape stick around and potentially recover anyway through leftovers and Drain Punch. This is a very common way Annihilape spirals out of control against teams that don't over-prepare for it. Sometimes even those can be very much overwhelmed. So yeah, Annihilape is just a little too good. I mean, I've thought Annihilape was going to be an issue ever since I saw him. I was just like, wait, ghost fighting? Oh no. Oh, no. We all remember what happened last time they made a ghost fighting type, right? With Marshadow. Ooh. So yeah, can't say I'm surprised by this. Annihilape, you're cool and all, but you know, it's been fun, it's been real. Catch you on the other side. And now for the last Pokemon that ended up getting banned from OU, we have Cyclizar, and this is bit kind of interesting, I think. Let's read what they have to say first. The premium user of Shed Tail is finally getting its due after being voted on since the start of the generation. Yes, Cyclizar has been on the radar for quite a bit now. We have exclusively voted on Cyclizar and not Shed Tail, since the other user of Shed Tail, Orthworm, has not been as intense of a headache to play against as Cyclizar. What makes Cyclizar truly broken is its access to an exceptionally high amount of utility alongside Shed Tail. Rapid Spin, Knockoff, U-Turn, Taunt, useful defensive typing, and most importantly, Regenerator, alongside okay-ish bulk and high speed allow it to access access to decent progress making outside of just using Shed Tail. Of course, Shed Tail is still the only reason Cyclizar is even viable in OU. The way Shed Tail takes advantage of passive Pokemon, or even simply resisted Pokemon, guessing games is second to none, providing not only a free entry to a Pokemon, but potentially multiple free turns, and so a wrong turn with a passive Pokemon turns into a death sentence against Cyclizar, plus offensive threats. Cyclizar is even often ran in hyper-offense teams with screens, usually through Grimmsnarl, making Shed Tail substitutes significantly harder to deal with, and even for non-passive Pokemon. So yes, as I mentioned here, we did see quite a bit of like a Cyclizar plus Grimmsnarl, Shed Tail screens, sort of cheesy HO on the ladder for a while there, but I think those types of teams definitely died down as time has gone on. I feel like people found ways to get around that, but those teams definitely are kind of annoying to deal with, because you know, you pass a sub around and then you get up your screens, and it's like it gets super easy to set up one of your Pokemon, like Annihilape, for instance, just as an example. Yeah, those type of teams can definitely be a pain to deal with. Though this universally useful utility and Shed Tail's oppressive nature, Cyclizar's inability to make significant progress on its own is rendered a relatively insignificant downside, and Cyclizar became a highly broken element of the current metagame. So what I think is so interesting about Cyclizar getting banned is normally when Pokemon get banned, not just in just this generation, but like in every gen basically, is it's normally really strong Pokemon that really have no switch-ins or counterplay that end up getting banned. Like we just saw with GU, and like we saw earlier with mons like Fluttermane and Houndstone, and like basically every gen, most Pokemon that get banned are just mons that are too strong to handle in the metagame, right? But Cyclizar is different, because Cyclizar is not that strong itself. I mean, if we go look at Cyclizar's stats real quick, this thing is not, like, he's not an offensive threat at all. Like, you look at this, he got 95 attack and 85 special attack. He's not hitting super hard at all. He doesn't even have, like, good offensive typing, really. Dragon's okay, but normal doesn't do any favors for him. So, like, it's not, like, an oppressive Pokemon in the sense that, you know, there's nothing that can switch into it. But the thing that makes Cyclizar like bannable in the eyes of the council, at least, is just how much support he gives. Like, he's like the ultimate, like, you can just slap him on any team and he just does so much for you. Like I said, he gets knockoff so he can get rid of items. He has Rapid Spin so he can get rid of hazards. And of course he has Shed Tail so he can pass the subs around. He has Taunt, which is always good support. You can also run U-Turn if Shed Tail's not enough for you, I guess. And yeah, he gets Regenerator, so it's super easy to Shed Tail with this guy. He's so fast. He's like one of the fastest mons in the tier. And it's just like, just having Cyclizar on your team gives you so much support. And it's just, he does so much for a team all at the same time. And it's really, I don't know, it's kind of interesting. This is the first, maybe not the first time, but like one of the few times I can think of where a Pokemon was banned because of just how, like, it's just too good of like a glue, I guess. It's just like, it just does everything like a team needs, kind of, except I guess setting up your own hazards, but there's plenty of Pokemon that can do that in the meta currently anyway, so it's not really a big deal. But I do want to talk a little bit about Shed Tail itself for a bit, because I've heard people say Shed Tail is a broken move, and you know, that's why Cyclizar's banned, right? I think they even said in the post that like Shed Tail is what makes Cyclizar as good as it is, and I think that's definitely true. If Cyclizar didn't have Shed Tail, I don't think it'd be that much of an issue. But I don't know that Shed Tail itself is actually broken. I mean, it's definitely like a really good move, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's basically just Baton Pass plus substitute at the same time, right? And Baton Pass has been banned for a good long while now, because, you know, it's just been deemed kind of cheesy and not very competitive. So the fact that you can like basically Baton Pass with this move, even if it's just a sub, and even if it does cost you half your HP, that itself is pretty strong, don't get me wrong. But I'm not convinced that like Shed Tail as a move is inherently broken, mainly because, you know, we have Orthworm who has Shed Tail as well, and Orthworm is very clearly, obviously, not broken with this move. That's partly due to that he's not a very good user of this move, mainly because he lacks like the things that Cyclizar make, you know, the reasons like Cyclizar is so good with Shed Tail, mainly the speed and Regenerator. Orthworm is very slow, so he's most of the time gonna go last before he can get a Shed Tail up. And also, he doesn't have great HP, but I guess neither does Cyclizar. But the more important thing is that Orthworm, excuse me, does not have a good way to recover HP. You kind of have to rely on leftovers, or I guess like switching into an Earthquake. But yeah, it's Orthworm. It's like, it's really tough to like go for Shed Tail with Orthworm, I feel like, because you're giving up half your HP, and like it's not easy to get that much HP back on this Pokemon once you've used it up. So that definitely is a drawback. So the fact that, I mean, also you could say like, well, okay, you say like Orthworm's not a very good Pokemon, so like the fact he's not that good with Shed Tail doesn't prove much, which I mean, Orthworm's not an amazing Pokemon, definitely, but I don't think he's actually that bad. I mean, he's a Steel type that's immune to Earthquake, or ground moves in general, which is always nice, and he's pretty dang bulky. He's got this massive defense stat, and if you invest in his HP and Spadef, he's actually, like, to take hits pretty well. I think the main downside is he just you can't recover HP, really, which definitely hurts him, but I don't think Earthworm's actually that bad of a Pokemon itself, but I think it does kind of show like the main downsides of Shed Tail. Mainly, I think that like you lose half your HP, which is a lot, and it's just that like Cyclizar can bypass that because he has Regenerator, right? So he's really not actually giving up that much HP, because like, yeah, you're losing half, but then you get a third back when you switch out, so it's really not that much of an issue. So Is Shed Tail really broken? I'm not sure, but definitely Cyclizar was a phenomenal user of the move and was probably a little too good with it, so that's why I got banned. Although I am still unsure if you know, if how good or how if Cyclizar was really ban worthy, right? Because last, like, if you guys saw the usage stats for last month, Cyclizar, he was only number 25 in usage, so he's definitely fallen off quite a bit. I believe he used to be like a top 15 in usage at one point. So people definitely started to use him less. So I don't know if he was definitely annoying. Don't get me wrong, but like, I don't know if he was actually that like oppressive in the meta. Just seeing like his usage fall off, kind of seeing people start to move away from him. But I guess he was still too strong for the council, so they decided to ban him. So yeah, that's the bans for OU. Definitely gonna change up the meta in interesting ways for sure. But that's not all we have to talk about, because of course, as I said, UU also had some bans of its own. So let's talk about those real quick. So as we can see, we had 5 Pokemon in UU up for suspect: Baxcalibur, Hydreigon, Gengar, Pelipper, and Floatzel. So if we look at the results, no one voted to ban either Pelipper or Floatzel, which is kind of interesting. I guess that just shows that Rain isn't that broken in UU right now, which I mean, I remember Rain dropping down to, or I guess just like Pelipper in general, Pelipper plus Barraskewda mainly. Both those Pokemon dropped to UU in Sword and Shield at one point. I remember definitely like those two together were very, very strong in UU at the time. So I was kind of expecting something similar to happen this time, that like Rain might be a little too good in UU, but I guess that's not the case, at least not currently. So I guess Rain gets to survive in the tier a little while longer, since yeah, no one voted to ban either of these guys, and you know, Floatzel's like the premier swift swimmer in the tier right now, so even better than Barraskewda is. So I guess not that big of an issue. And we got Gengar as well, who's definitely a very strong Pokemon in his own right, strong ghost type, but only looks like 2 people voted to ban him, so I guess he's not that problematic in the tier. However, if we do look at Baxcalibur and Hydreigon, both of these guys were unanimously voted to be banned from the tier, and I gotta say, it's not that surprising for both these dudes, honestly. I mean, I was expecting it for Baxcalibur, like, since as soon as he dropped down. The fact that he dropped down at all is pretty disrespectful. But yeah, as soon as that dude went to UU, I was like, oh, there's no way this dude can stick around. Even if we do have Orthworm, who is kind of the Baxcalibur wall, low-key, it's not enough to stop him. So, as we can see, Baxcalibur was incredibly threatening from the get-go. Its monstrous bulk combined with its access to moves like Dragon Dance and Sword Stance made checking it long-term borderline impossible, as even the closest things it had to counter, such as Orthworm, Slowbro, and Bronzong, could get worn down quite fast if they weren't careful. Additionally, beating down its counterplay with Terra Blast was a very realistic option that it had. Oftentimes, Terra Blast is a tough move to justify because of its unreliable coverage, but with Baxcalibur, its stabs were capable of hitting almost everything anyway, so you didn't need to burst through a steel type, then you didn't need to click anything else anyway. It was a unanimous vote. So yeah, Baxcalibur, he's just too strong, too good. He's just how, I don't get it, bro. I don't get, this will never make sense to me that this Pokemon fell down in the first place. With stats like these, bro. With stats like these, with a 145 attack, with Dragon Ice coverage, I don't know how this ever happened in the first place. But you know, at least now everything's right. Baxcalibur is not in UU anymore. We can rest easy there. Thank goodness. But then of course we also have Hydreigon, who was a very strong Pokemon in UU as well. I believe he was number 2 in usage. And I think number 1 was Tinkaton, but Tinkaton was only so high, probably in part to try to wall Hydreigon, right? Because it's a pretty decent check to it. You're immune to the dragon moves and you resist the dark moves. Basically any bulky fairy is, was worth considering. I know Azumarill also had high usage in UU before it moved up to OU, so basically, people were just using any fairy type they could to try to wall this thing, but it was not enough. So as we could see, Sub Nasty Plot Hydreigon was pretty much capable of shredding anything that wasn't a hard offense, and finding reliable counterplay to it was very difficult, even in Alpha. Now that we've lost both Palmont and Azumarill, it shouldn't be much of a surprise to see this guy on the chopping block. I guess that's true. They also point out Palmont had like a decent offensive check to this guy, because you are faster and you can hit it with like close combat or ice punch or whatever. So there is that. And yeah, the Azumarill, like I mentioned, there really aren't many Pokemon capable of handling Dark Pulse plus Flash Cannon, coming off that monstrous special attack stat, and it found way too many opportunities to set up thanks to its amazing typing, further complemented by Terra Steel. So yeah, Terra Steel is pretty common because not only are you turning yourself into a good defensive typing, you also have Levitate, so you don't have to worry about your ground weakness as a Steel type, and you also, now your Flash Cannon is Stab, so you can just very easily muscle through most fairy types that way. So yeah, Nasty Plot, Dark Pulse, Flash Cannon, all that, just too strong, way too strong. We'll be keeping an eye on other elements too. Gengar isn't off the hook just yet. We're going to see how the metagame progresses though, and as we feel Gengar, Rain, and the other threats are decidedly not broken right now. So yeah, I guess Gengar and Rain get away today, but not Baxcalibur or Hydreigon. So yeah, I mean, these two are both very strong, and it's not that surprising that both of them got banned. I wasn't expecting Hydreigon as much, but I can't say I'm surprised that he'd get banned in the first place. But yeah, that's the bans that just happened for OU and UU. Really interested to hear your guys' thoughts on these bans and how you think they'll affect the meta, and I guess who's gonna be on the chopping block next time, whenever the next round of bans gets decided on. I guess we'll wait to see. Personally, I'm thinking Shampao might become a little problematic in OU in the future, but we'll see what happens. Anyways, that's it from me. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all in the next video.